George Michael Zimmerman, 28 years old. Until a month ago, he was, his neighbor Frank Taffy says, just a guy who cared.
George was a caring passion. He had a passion for the safety of our neighborhood. And he demonstrated to the rest of us that one person could make a difference. And he was an average guy, just like me.
We know him only from what people say of him, from the couple of pictures there are of him, and from his voice on the 911 calls he made February 26th, the night he shot and killed Trayvon Martin.
This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. It's raining and he's just walking around looking about.
Zimmerman says the shooting was self-defense. He has not been charged with a crime. What we've been able to piece together about George Zimmerman's life, you might say, is a contradiction. In 2005, he's arrested for resisting a police officer without violence after an incident at a local bar. He pleads not guilty, but later he enters a 6-month pre-trial diversion program as part of a plea deal. As this document shows, it's extended 2 months because, quote, my program participation has not been satisfactory. Later that year, Zimmerman and his ex-fiancée both file for protection against domestic violence after each alleged there was pushing and hitting. None of this sounds like the boy George and Kay Hall knew. Zimmerman was an altar boy in the Catholic Church. He didn't move to Florida until after he graduated high school here in Manassas, Virginia, in this house across the street from Hall.
They were a tight-knit family, very good with their children, were very well behaved. They didn't run around loose or anything. They were faithful. They were active in the Catholic Church.
And this is the George Zimmerman, the just a guy side, the man trying to make something of his life, the side George Hall knew. Zimmerman was a part-time student at Seminole State College, studying general education, but today the college withdrew him for safety reasons. He's worked various odd jobs, security for a home party company, and for a time, around 2008, he worked at CarMax. That same year, Zimmerman applied for and was accepted into a citizens outreach program run by the Sheriff's Department, which introduces participants to law enforcement procedures. Before he's accepted, Zimmerman has to explain his 2005 arrest. He writes in part, quote, I hold law enforcement officers in the highest regard, as I hope to one day become one, end quote. In fact, a couple years ago, Zimmerman called his old neighbor George Hall asking for a letter of recommendation for a law enforcement application.
Very positive one. I mean, I have nothing but the strongest positive feelings for the whole family, including the boys.
We don't know what happened to the application, but when he volunteered for and became the neighborhood watch captain a couple years ago, it may have been George Zimmerman's way of walking a beat. John Zarella, CNN, Sanford, Florida.